Sometimes the most perfect picture is hiding the most terrible crack. Not a jagged, obvious fissure, but a hairline fracture. So fine it's invisible until the whole thing shatters. The story of Sarah and Ben Carter is one of those pictures. To their friends in the quiet, pine-scented town of Maple Creek, they were the golden couple. He, Ben, the ruggedly handsome owner of the popular Maple Creek Lodge, a man with a firm handshake and an easy smile that promised a warm fire and a strong drink. She, Sarah, the vibrant heart of the operation, a woman whose laughter was said to be as clear and refreshing as the mountain streams. At 34, with sun-kissed hair and a kindness that made every guest feel like family, she was the lodge's true north. Their life, set against a backdrop of breathtaking mountain vistas, was a postcard of domestic bliss. But in the early hours of November 15th, that postcard was torn in half. The rain had been falling for 2 days, a persistent, cold drizzle that turned the gravel drive of the lodge into a slurry of mud and leaves. It was 3:17 a.m. when the 911 call came in. The dispatcher noted the caller's voice first. A man, breathless, panicked, the words tumbling over each other. It was Ben Carter. "My wife," he gasped. "She's gone. I think something's happened to her." Sheriff's deputies arrived to find Ben standing on the porch of the main lodge, soaked to the skin, his face a mask of anguish. He was frantic, pointing into the oppressive darkness of the surrounding woods. He explained that Sarah had gone out hours earlier to check on a noise. A thump against the side of the building, maybe a branch, maybe an animal. When she didn't return, he'd gone looking, finding nothing but the relentless drumming of the rain. The story was simple, plausible, but from that very first moment, something felt off. The investigation began with the grim ritual of a search. K-9 units combed the sodden forest, their barks echoing through the mist. Divers dragged the nearby lake. Volunteers called her name until they were hoarse. But the relentless Pacific Northwest rain was both a blessing and a curse for an investigator. It preserved some things but washed everything else away. There were no clear signs of a struggle in the couple's immaculate apartment above the lodge, just a single, faint smudge of mud on the polished hardwood floor near the back door. No forced entry, no shattered glass. It was as if Sarah Carter had simply dissolved into the wet, dark night. The first crack in Ben's story appeared within 24 hours. A guest staying at the lodge that night, a trucker with an impeccable memory for detail, recalled hearing a raised argument from the Carters' apartment around 1 a.m., not the single, concerned inquiry Ben had described. The trucker couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, sharp, angry. When detectives gently circled back to this, Ben's easy smile tightened. He waved a dismissive hand. "A miner spat about finances," he said, his voice regaining a practiced calm. "Nothing serious. We kissed and made up before bed." He looked the lead detective, a seasoned veteran named Inspector Miller, right in the eye. But Miller, a man who had built a career on listening to the spaces between words, noticed something. A slight tick in Ben's jaw, a fleeting look in his eyes that was more calculation than grief. As days turned into a week with no body and no new leads, the media frenzy began. "The vanishing of the Lodge Queen," the headline screamed. Sarah's face, beaming from a lodge advertisement, was on every news broadcast. The public pressure mounted, but the investigation was stalling. Then the digital ghosts began to whisper. Forensic analysis of Sarah's laptop, a device Ben claimed she rarely used, revealed a secret life. Buried beneath vacation photos and lodge spreadsheets were drafts of emails she never sent. They were addressed to her sister, and they painted a starkly different picture of her marriage. "The lodge is drowning," one read. "Ben's made some terrible investments, and he's hiding it from me. I found a second set of books." Another was even more chilling. "He's changed. The anger. It's like a switch flips. Last night he put his fist through the wall an inch from my head. I'm scared." This was not the story of a minor spat. This was the story of a woman trapped in a gilded cage with a man whose financial empire was crumbling and whose temper was turning deadly. The investigation pivoted. Ben Carter was no longer just the grieving husband, he was the prime suspect. Detectives began to pull at the threads of his financial life, and the entire tapestry unraveled. The lodge was indeed on the brink of foreclosure. Ben had taken out massive loans against it, loans he had no hope of repaying. And then the clincher, a life insurance policy on Sarah, taken out just 6 months earlier. The payout was for $2 million. A motive clear as day: greed and desperation. The pieces were falling into place, but without a body, a murder charge was almost impossible to prove. The case needed a miracle. It needed Sarah to be found. Weeks bled into a tense, silent month. The lodge was closed, its cheerful sign now a bleak monument. Ben, under the constant glare of the media and the unblinking eyes of the investigators, maintained a stoic, wounded public persona. He gave interviews, pleading for his wife's safe return, his performance so convincing that much of the town still rallied behind him. He was a pillar of the community, they said, a man wronged by circumstance. But Inspector Miller knew. He could feel it in his bones. He just needed the final, irrefutable piece of evidence. And then, a hiker's dog, chasing a squirrel off a trail 10 miles from the lodge, found it. Not a body, but Sarah's favorite scarf, snagged on a thorny bush. And nearby, tucked under a rotted log as if hidden by a child, was her phone. The battery was dead, but the data would live to tell a terrifying tale. The forensic download of Sarah's phone was the turning point, the moment the hairline fracture became a canyon. It contained a voice memo, recorded at 1:08 a.m. on the night she disappeared. The audio was muffled, the sounds of a struggle, but the voices were unmistakable. Sarah's, terrified, pleading, "Ben, stop! Please, just talk to me." And Ben's, a guttural snarl they had never heard from him. "You think you can just leave? You'll ruin everything. It's all yours anyway." A sickening thud, a final, choked gasp. Then silence, followed by the sound of heavy breathing and Ben's voice, now cold and eerily calm, muttering to himself, Okay, think. The lake. Too obvious. The old quarry." He had recorded his own confession. In his rage, he hadn't noticed the phone, knocked to the floor, its recording app still active. He had, quite literally, narrated his crime. The arrest was swift and quiet. Ben Carter was taken into custody at dawn, the morning mist still clinging to the mountains he had used to hide his terrible secret. There was no struggle, no dramatic outburst, only a cold, defiant silence. The trial was a media spectacle, the courtroom packed daily with those who had once called him a friend. The prosecution laid out its case with methodical precision: the financial ruin, the secret fears in Sarah's emails, the life insurance policy, and, finally, the damning audio. Ben's defense attorney, a slick-suited lawyer from the city, argued that the audio proved nothing. It was an argument that got out of hand, an accidental shove. He painted Sarah as a spendthrift who had pushed a desperate man to his breaking point. For a moment, it seemed the jury might be swayed by this narrative of tragic passion. But then, the prosecution called its final, surprise witness. It was Sarah's sister. She took the stand, clutching a small, worn journal. Her voice trembled but held firm as she read an entry from 6 months prior. Sarah had written about a recurring nightmare. "I had the dream again last night," she wrote. "The one where Ben takes me out on the lake in the rowboat. He's smiling, but his eyes are dead. He tells me the water is deep and cold, and that some secrets are meant to stay buried at the bottom." The journal entry was dated 2 weeks before Ben took out the insurance policy. It was premeditation. It was cold, calculated murder. The jury saw it then, the monstrous truth behind the easy smile. The verdict was guilty. As the judge pronounced the sentence, Ben Carter's mask finally slipped. There was no remorse, only a flash of pure, undiluted rage before the blankness returned. He was led away, forever to be haunted by the echo of his own voice on that rainy night. Sarah's body was never recovered. Ben Carter, from his prison cell, has never revealed its location. He took his final, cruel secret with him. The Maple Creek Lodge still stands, empty now, a beautiful shell holding a terrible silence. The rain still falls on the lake, and the mountains keep their secrets. But if you listen closely on a quiet night when the wind sighs through the pines, you might just hear the ghost of a recording, a chilling reminder that the person you share your bed with can be the greatest mystery of all. If stories like this keep you hooked, hit subscribe for more.